Hello there! Welcome to Alyssa Jean's Star Wars Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and in this video I will be counting down my 10 favorite villains, or the villains that I think are the best in the Star Wars universe. And by the Star Wars universe, I mean the films and the shows, the animated shows and The Mandalorian. Not the expanded universe, not the comic books, any of that other crap. Only the films and the shows. So I will be looking at the villains that I think are the most interesting, that I think are the best. They're just my favorite villains. They just work for me the most in the Star Wars universe. And I'm going to try to avoid being too spoilery with the shows because I know a lot of people haven't seen the shows or seen all of the shows, so I'll just talk about the characters without spoiling them too much, but I'm going to be spoilery as hell when it comes to the films because everybody's seen those. So, without further ado, let's get into the 10 best villains in Star Wars. At number 10, Moff Gideon from Star Wars The Mandalorian. I considered a few different villains for this spot. I even gave some consideration to Paul Bettany's character in Solo, A Star Wars Story, but ultimately I had to go with Moff Gideon because, I mean, come on. It's Giancarlo Esposito. There isn't a better actor today at playing villains. And I have him on here more for his appearance at the end of Season 1. I thought he really brought life to a lackluster Season 1 and was an extremely formidable opponent and very intimidating. By the end of Season 2, I felt like he was just a whiny bitch and was way too easily defeated. Overall, I wasn't that impressed with the Season 2 finale. However, he is a very formidable villain in the end of Season 1, and as I said, this actor is the best at playing villains that there is. So Moff Gideon is number 10 on my top 10 villains list. At number 9, Saruman! I mean, Count Dooku. I will never get over the fact that Christopher Lee starred in 2 different nerdy franchises in the same year, playing the exact same goddamn character. I'll never get over that. But Count Dooku is on this list not because of the Christopher Lee version in the films, because that is pretty much a nothing character who does nothing and dies, whereas the version in the Clone Wars becomes a much more developed character, and you get to find out in later seasons of the Clone Wars that Count Dooku is very much aware that Palpatine will eventually discard him like yesterday's garbage, and he keeps trying to make plans to thwart Palpatine. But of course you know he's going to fail because you saw the Revenge of the Sith. But still, it's very interesting to see that he's a little smarter than he appears in the films and is much more of a multi-dimensional character than he is in the films. So for that reason, I am going to give the number 9 spot to Count Dooku. At number 8, Jabba the Hutt from obviously Return of the Jedi. He also makes some appearances in the Clone Wars, but mostly Return of the Jedi. And I'm going to be honest here, he's here for 100% nostalgic reasons. I mean, he's not really that interesting of a villain. Pretty much all he does is go, oh, 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 oh. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to him. But the counter argument to that is, he's Jabba the Hutt. I mean, come on, it's Jabba the Hutt. It's Jabba the Hutt. So, strictly for that reason, he comes in at number 8 on my top 10 villains list. Coming in at number 7 Emperor Palpatine, also known as Darth Sidious. This is a really great villain in the original trilogy, and even more so in the prequel trilogy. I actually do really like following his journey into taking over the galaxy in the prequel trilogy. However, he would be a lot higher on this list, in the top 5, possibly even in the top 3, if they didn't ruin him in Rise of Skywalker. I mean, it was so ridiculous making him Rey's grandfather. No, he's not! And it was also seemingly really ridiculous bringing him magically back to life, although it does appear that they might perhaps be setting up the fact that he is a clone in that film. That seems to be hinted at in the Bad Batch and in the Mandalorian, that the Empire may be working on Force-sensitive clones. Some YouTube videos I watch talk about that as if it's a fact, and I don't know if it's factual in the supplementary materials, the legends, the comic books, and all that bullshit. But as far as I know, I don't think it's a proven fact yet. But if it turns out to be the case, that would explain why he comes back to life, but it won't explain why he is a ridiculous, over-the-top cartoonish villain in that movie. He is somewhat in Return of the Jedi too, but it's just way out of control in Rise of the Skywalker. But despite all of that, he still comes in at number 7 because, you know, he's still Emperor Palpatine. At number 6, Ashajj Ventress from Star Wars The Clone Wars. She really doesn't start becoming an interesting villain until, I want to say, it was about season 3, I think. And then from there on out, anytime she appears, she's a very interesting character. In fact, so much so that by the end of the Clone Wars, can you still say she's a villain? I would say so. I still qualify her as a villain, but she becomes a much more nuanced character as you learn her backstory and you see what led her to be where she is and how that affects the decisions she makes in the current day episodes. Why has she not appeared in the Bad Batch or in the Mandalorian or anything like that? Or even Rebels? So where is she? So I would love to see her show up in the Bad Batch, which takes place right after the Clone Wars, so it would be pretty easy to do so. But I really do enjoy this character and hope to see more of her again. At number 5, Kylo Ren from the sequel trilogy. Yeah, I know. Oh, everyone thinks he's so emo. Dude, he is the most dynamic villain in all of Star Wars. He's a very multi-dimensional, interesting character with an interesting twist on the whole trying to avoid going to the dark side. He's trying to avoid going to the light side. Spoiler alert, he fails in that, but he has a very interesting journey, and that's hard to pull off in a set of films that are completely disjointed from each other. But his journey, I think, is fairly consistent compared to some of the others. And I like Adam Driver. I think this is a good villain. I don't care what anybody else says. So Kylo Ren, number 5 on my top 10 villain list. At number 4, Grand Moff Tarkin. Now, in recent years, he has appeared all over the Star Wars universe in the Clone Wars, and even more so in the Bad Batch. And of course, there's that creepy CGI recreation of Peter Cushing in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. But make no mistake, he is 100% on this list for his original appearance in the original 1977 Star Wars film, now known as Episode 4, A New Hope. He is such an insidious and cold-hearted villain, and he is very effective in that film, especially his interactions with Princess Leia. And lest we forget, he is the main villain of that film. Though Darth Vader got more of the fanfare, Darth Vader is second in command and really doesn't take a big step up to the next level and get more developed until the next film, The Empire Strikes Back. And A New Hope, it is all about Grand Moff Tarkin. Now, Among all of his appearances in the animated shows, my favorite part that he appears in is in the Bad Batch Season 1 finale, where he says, "You may fire when ready." I was just like, he did it! He said the thing! He said the thing! That's the thing that he says! But for me, it really is just all about A New Hope for this character, an extremely effective villain. At number 3, Maul. Originally known as Darth Maul, he ends up dropping the Darth out of his name once he magically comes back to life. I did take some issue with the explanation for how he does magically come back to life after being chopped in half and falling in an endless chasm. But you know what? That's fine, because I actually really love what they do with him after he comes back to life. All of the episodes that he appears in the Clone Wars are some of my favorite episodes of that series, and I love how the end of the series focuses on what he is doing as well as what Ahsoka Tano is doing during the events of Revenge of the Sith. Then I also love him in Rebels. I love how he's kind of a failed Palpatine wannabe, where he's trying to get young Ezra Bridger to be his apprentice, and he's always calling him his apprentice, and Ezra is just like, "I'm not your apprentice," and he's like, "Not yet." I think that's great. Love me some Maul, and perhaps we shall see him again in another series, maybe the Obi-Wan one. Who knows? Coming in at number 2, Grand Admiral Thrawn from Star Wars Rebels. This is the ultimate in tough villains, as he is an extremely formidable opponent for our heroes and very tough to defeat due to the fact that he is so smart and so clever, and he's always like 3 steps ahead of everybody. During the story arc where there was a rebel spy amongst the Imperial ranks, you could tell that Grand Admiral Thrawn didn't quite have it figured out yet, but you knew it was only a matter of time before he figured out who it was, because he's just so smart. And of course he does. And at the same time, he also avoids being too hard to defeat. Sometimes that can make for a bad villain when the villain is just too invincible, but he is fallible, as you see at various points throughout the series, but especially toward the end, that he can be beaten. He's just very, very hard to do that. So it just makes him kind of the perfect villain. Now, it does appear we might see a live-action version of him at some point, possibly in the Ahsoka Tano series, which will come out who knows when. There was at one point, there was rumors that Benedict Cumberbatch was going to play him, and that would have been incredible, but I think that was just make-believe. I don't think there was ever any truth to that. But I do hope that we do see him in live action at some point, because this is such a great villain. And at number 1, not only is Darth Vader easily the best villain in the Star Wars universe, if I were to rank all of the villains in any universe, he would be up near the top of the list. And this is 1000% because of The Empire Strikes Back. He is just on a tear in that film. He's just force choking failed admirals and captains of the fleet right and left, and he's an obsessed villain trying to find Luke Skywalker, and you find out it's because I am your father. Which makes him a more interesting character. I wish they had gotten a better actor to play Anakin Skywalker in the prequels to make his story more complete, but that's okay. It does not take away from the fact that Darth Vader is one of the greatest villains of all time, and certainly the number 1 villain in the Star Wars universe.